Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy TCG Nistro here, and today I am doing my UA deck profile. I got a request to do a deck profile of a deck that I'm playing at the moment, and to be honest, I'm not really playing at the moment, so this deck profile won't be the most meta relevant piece of information that you'll see, but I will sort of like talk through my options and talk through how I play the deck or why I play certain things. I know you see the Natis right here, you're probably confused. This isn't a Dogmatika build, don't worry, but it does definitely use Natis nonetheless. And so we're going to start off with the main deck here, because I put Signing Deal on front because, you know, Super Bowl weekend, and also, you know, like none of the main deck monsters are hollow. So, monster lineup, you start out with 2 UA Midfielder. He's your second best level 4 now. You don't need to play 3 of you don't need to play 3 of him anymore because you have Libero Spiker. And now Libero Spiker is actually your best level 4 because what he does is that he can send a level 5 or higher UA monster from your hand back into the deck and then special summon a UA from your deck with a different name during your opponent's main phase. So the one that you're going to summon out with that mostly is your player manager. And so what player manager does is that player manager, the glare sort of sucks here, but player manager, when it is summoned or special summoned, it has one of 2 effects. Either it destroys a card on the field, or it can negate the face-up effects of all monsters on the field except for UA monsters. So, you know, either he can, you know, disrupt an opponent's play, you know, stop them from doing something, sort of stop like a continuous effect or something, or he can negate the effects of your opponent's monsters. Now, the problem with summoning Player Manager is that he's going to start a new chain after you summon him off of Libero Spiker. So that means that if you want to disrupt something immediately, the Libero Spiker isn't always the best option. But if you can Libero Spiker preemptively to, you know, destroy something, or if, you know, you just want to skill drain the field for a turn, I think Player Manager is one of your best options to go into during your opponent's turn. And so is a UA Perfect Ace. Perfect Ace is a bit of a classic. He's one of the first UAs that came out. And simply what he does is that during your opponent's turn, if they were activate a card or effect, that means whether it's on the field already or not, you can discard a card and negate the activation, and you do destroy the card. So yeah. And then 1 Slugger, because this is more of like a going first build. You're not really going to be focusing on the more aggressive parts of the deck, which is why we also only play 1 Dreadnought Dunker as well. Because, you know, these are more for like going, you know, sort of like pushing for game rather than actually, you know, like being there during your opponent's turn. And lastly, 1 Rival Rebounder, just to sort of recycle some of your other UAs. Honestly, if, you know, with Libero Spiker, I'd say having one of these 3 in hand, first turn with Libero Spiker, so that you can summon either your player manager or your Perfect Case, whichever that you need more, is honestly one of the best situations that you can have going first. And this is going to be a going first UA deck, because I feel like with UAs, you either have to build your deck around going first and side around going second, or build your deck around going second and side to play around going first, whichever you think is more important. So in this going first build, the last 2 monsters that we have are 2 Ash Blossoms, because Ash Blossom is a good card. Now for the spells, we do have our triple UA Signing Deal, hollows from, I forgot which OTS it was, but it came hollow in the OTS pack, and I was pretty hype around the time that UA Stadium came out. Now, UA Stadium's like a newer card, so what it does is that when you activate it, you search a UA, and if you reveal another UA field spell, or just another UA or FA field spell, you get an extra normal summon by paying 1,000 life points. So it's like if you draw both Hyper Stadium and UA Stadium, it's honestly one of the best situations that you can be in. I play Locker Room and a Power Jersey just to close out the UA spell cards. Some people do run more of Power Jersey, which is fine. If you want to build your deck around going second and just OTKing as soon as possible, that's fine. And Locker Room is to sort of like have a way to recycle your resources, because it adds a UA from either your grave or your field to your hand. The fact it's a quick play is very helpful. Adds a UA from grave or field to hand, and then you sort of get to like shuffle your deck. You shuffle any number of UA monsters or FAs, but it's not really important right now. From your hand into the deck, you shuffle, you draw the same number that you sent back, and the reason why this is cool is because it can generate that UA from the graveyard, shuffle it back, and then draw you a new card. It could be good during your opponent's turn as well to probably save your like UA monsters. Stadium is still like one of your best openers. Now you're gonna notice that I'm not playing terraforming, and honestly, I don't think the deck needs terraforming to function. If you want to play terraforming for more consistency, you can, but I can tell you that it doesn't need it. Triple Extravs, because I feel like going first Extrav is like the best option. If you want to build your deck around going second, I feel like Prosperity would be the better card, because if you're gonna go second, your opponent's field might be full of negates, or you may have to Droplet or Chalice or something, and that may get in the way of Extravagance at the start of the main phase 1. So if you play Prosperity instead, sort of like same idea, you still banish the same number of cards, although you get to choose them with Prosperity, which is also going to be a good thing. You can also play Prosperity in this build. If you have access to this card, you can definitely play it, but if not, Extravagance is still a good way to go. Triple Foolish Burial Goods, because this is pretty much your terraforming in the deck. It's not only your terraforming, but it searches like pretty much any UA spell card, and you run like 5 different UA spell cards. So it's a really good card to open into. 1 Call by the Grave, because you do a lot of searching, and 1 Rhoda, because your level 4s are still the most important aspect of the deck. And going into traps, this is a going first build, so don't be surprised when you see 2 Solemn Judgment, 2 Imperm, 2 Penalty Box for searching your UA spell cards off of Foolish Burial Goods. I don't think you need to play 3, because it can clog up your hand. You wanna mill it off of Foolish Burial Goods, but you don't want to draw it. That's why you don't play 3. The card that you want to draw is your Dogmatika Punishment. Now the thing about UAs is that they don't really care about the extra deck at all. And so the cool thing about Dogmatika Punishment is that you send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. So usually your most optimal target would be Natis or Entis, however you pronounce her name. And so you target a monster with less attack than she has, or less or equal attack. So she has 25. If your opponent has a monster with 25 or 100 attack, you can mill her. This is going to destroy the monster, and then she's going to activate after to destroy any other card on their side of the field. So you pretty much get to pop 2 off of 1 if you get to keep all 3 Natises. If you end up banishing all of them off of Extravagance, you actually do play a lot more cards in your extra deck, like Omega, who can recycle cards if he's sent to the graveyard. Unfortunately, he's limited, so we can only play 1. When Pegasus at Ignister, when he's in the graveyard and one of your cards is destroyed, you can banish this card you control and target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it back into deck. So he can sort of like revenge kill a card your opponent has if they kill a card, I was going to say a Pokemon, that you have. And so you just run a few like high attack monsters. You run these Flower Guardians, they're 5,000 attack. Super Robo Galaxy Destroyer, 5,000 attack. Leap, 4,000 attack. And this guy, he can save. So if a Link 3 or lower Link monster you control is destroyed, you can banish him from your graveyard to pop a card. So if you want to set him up in graveyard with Dogmatika Punishment, you can. It's really all based on the situation. And again, just high attack monsters, just in case they summon that high attack monster. 2 Isoldes, because adding that UA monster from your deck to your hand, adding any UA monster from your deck to your hand, can still be useful for Libero Spiker. You can definitely max out on Isoldes if you aren't comfortable with only playing 2 of them because of Extrav. But, it's not really necessary. You may not go into it every game. And it is still something that, just you can just have it just to have it there. And lastly, you have your sort of just generic Link monsters, just monsters to go into in case, you sort of don't have a choice. Access code, I think, is real funny to go into stuff like into these because as when I was playing against my friend playing Sky Strikers, he had Mystic Mine up and he had just one Sky Striker monster. And so, you can turn, 2 or 3 monsters into a Link monster. And so you can end up, if you don't have your Dogmatika Punishment or you don't have any back row removal, you don't have the Judgments, your Link monsters can still save you from something like a Mystic Mine situation, but in some situations it can't, right? And so that's where your side deck comes in. The situations where, your main deck isn't really optimal. I would say that this deck hard loses to combo decks because combo decks usually, if combo decks can get past 1 or 2 negates, UAs can't beat them. Like UAs will struggle to beat a combo deck that can get past 1 or 2 negates simply because those type of combo decks would just straight up outrun UAs, just run over them. But because of UAs, I've heard that the meta is a little more control based right now, so I don't think UAs would be the worst pick in the world, simply because they can sort of like play around other types of decks. They're a bit more of like a toolbox deck where they can sort of just get the resources that they need when they need it, and they can sort of like play how they need to play to adapt to the opponent. Now going into the side deck, where if you feel like you want to build a going second build, these are some of the cards you might want to play, right? So like Prankotrops and Alpha the Master of Beasts, because Alpha can, send cards back to your opponent's hand, and Prankotrops can summon itself, bait out, an attack, bait out a negate, get rid of cards, attack over something, and then pop something. It has a lot of options you can do with Prankotrops. I really wish it wasn't limited. And sort of like Alpha sends itself back to the hand, so it's like a self-reoccurring card. So if you don't get rid of all your opponent's shit on the first turn, next turn you summon it back out again, and you just do it all over again, right? One Blockbacker, simply because if you are playing it against a deck that is sort of more combo heavy, Blockbacker and Nibiru's wouldn't hurt if you're playing a more going first build. Definitely sort of just there to like stop your opponent as much as possible. One Heavy Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster. I was going to say Heavy Storm Duster, which also wouldn't be a bad card. Simply because, going second, you want to clear your opponent's back row. Harpy's Feather Duster works. You can also play Lightning Storms if you have them. I sold mine recently, so I don't have them anymore. But if I did, I would definitely be playing them in a going second build of this deck. I would very at least be siding them, because why not, right? Like, just pop your opponent's whole board or half their board, right? 2 Ice Dragon's Prisons for going first. You can definitely just main this card. I know a lot of people are maining it. I'm only siding it just because I just like the way my deck functions right now. But if you feel like you need to play this card, I don't know what deck in the meta it stops, because as I said, I don't really know the meta. I know Virtual World is pretty good. I know Dryton's pretty good. I know Shadow is pretty good. And I think this card can stop all those decks. I think Dragons are still pretty up there as well. So playing this against Dragons can be pretty devastating as well. So really good cards for going first. And I think good cards in general. If you have these, you should definitely be playing them, or at least siding them. One Droplet. I sold my other one. I would have 2. But Dark Ruler No More got the common reprint in the Charmer Structure deck, actually. So if you don't have droplets, pick up some common Dark Ruler No Mores from the Charmer Structure deck, because it's sort of like the same theory, except, droplets a little better because, you can send stuff like Penalty Box to the grave, you can send dead cards to grave, and you can negate monster effects while you're doing it. So Droplet is sort of like a good way to go about it. So if you Dark Ruin No More, all their monster effects are negated, really good card for going second, and you could also play it in a going first build. Evenly matched, simply for, the Dark Ruin No More evenly matched, so you negate all their monster effects, go into battle phase, banish pretty much everything except for their one card, and then you get to set up your plays and sort of just have fun with the game like that. Imperm, just to max out. So if you're going first and you don't see your imperms already, just play the third one. Couldn't hurt. And lastly, 2 cosmics, simply because you want like to be able to like interact with your opponent. So if you feel like your opponent's deck is something that maybe whether you're going first or going second, if you feel like you need to like hit stuff when it happens, I feel like Cosmic is sort of the best card to play. If you go first, you can Cosmic your opponent's back row, during their end phase, just to, stop it from being a problem during your next turn. Cosmic's just overall a good card. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my current UA build. It's nothing too crazy. I don't really think you need any cards from the new Blazing Vortex set. Maybe except like the Underworld Goddess, only, but that's like a really situational card. I don't really think you'd go into a card like that in this deck, but it is still a possibility. I did show off, Pot of Prosperity before. I do think it is good because instead of Extravagance banishing the cards that, could banish like the extra deck monsters that are really important in your deck, Prosperity lets you choose which ones that you banish face down, so you can banish the ones that you don't need as much, like maybe the high attack ones, maybe an Isolde, or maybe, if you don't feel like you need all 3 of them, you can only banish one and keep the other 2, depending on how you want to do it. I think Prosperity is also a good card to have, and I think it's more optimal for the going second build, but it can also work for going first because it can give you like the right card, like the exact card that you need. And you don't have to activate this at the start of your main phase. You can wait to activate it, like after you do all your searching, wait to activate it, and then get that right card that you need. That's sort of why Prosperity is so good. And yeah, just a few other cards you can play in UAs if you want. Summon Limit. For like a going first build, if you don't want your opponent to like combo off on you, I think Summon Limit is a good investment. Same thing for Torrential Tribute. Stopping, just killing your opponent's entire field at once. Definitely not the worst thing in the world. Storm Forth. It can get around a lot of cards, especially like Dragoon and stuff, sort of, even if they have multiple negates, just Storm Forth, chain to their negate. The fact it's a quick play makes it really, really good. And you also don't really care about your extra deck, so if you draw any of your level 5 UAs and a Storm Forth, you're going to be cooking with something. Gizmek, to sort of like play around your opponent and also to be able to pop cards during your opponent's turn. Lost Winds and Goza Matches, just more stuff to stop, sort of like stun your opponent. Goza Match is more for stun. Lost Wind, because you can drop it with Perfect Ace if you don't, if you have Perfect Ace in like your opening hand, or if you play into Perfect Ace. Or you can just set it off the bat and just, revive it when your opponent summons a monster from the extra deck. This was a funny card. It's called Banquet of Millions. And so if you ever, don't feel like playing Dogmatika Punishment, but you also don't really care about your extra deck, this is a really funny card. So what it does is that you banish any number of monsters from your extra deck face down, and then your opponent has to banish the same number of cards from their random face down cards from your opponent's extra deck until their end phase. So essentially, you can stop them from summoning every single monster in their extra deck if you send your entire extra deck at once. Now, it just says banish any number of cards from your extra deck face down, so I don't know if this would work better with a pendulum deck, like something like Ignites, where Ignites can stack up their fucking like extra deck with like full of like Ignite monsters, and then they don't have to banish everything in their extra deck to sort of like get this effect off first turn. I think I'd have to look a little more into the ruling on that one, but yeah. Also, Dimensional Barrier, real good because Dryton Zodiac is around, so Exceed decks, Ritual decks, Fusion decks like Shadow, and so it just stops a lot of the stuff in the format. So if you really want to play this deck competitively, I would say find some space for Dimensional Barrier. If you don't like Dogmatika Punishment, feel free to take it out. And I think lastly here is the Tenyi Vishuddha package. This is more for going second because Vishuddha is sort of like the same idea as like Pankratrops, except it requires extra deck space. So, he can special summon himself for free when you have no monsters, link him off into Monk of the Tenyi, and then he can banish himself to send a card your opponent controls back to the hand. Before you've even used any other thing on your, in your hand, you can sort of like get a card your opponent controls back into the hand and sort of like make the field a little easier to play around. But, you know, it does require extra deck space, and it does require main deck space as well. Pankratops is overall a better strategy, but, you know, he's not limited. So if you can, like, base your deck around using this card, you know, it will probably be a little more rewarding because you're going to see him more often than you would something like a Pankratops. But then again, you know, Alpha Master of the Beast is also still a card. So, you know, this is more like a budget version of Alpha rather than using Alpha himself. But yeah, that's pretty much all for that I have to say about UAs. Sort of just gave you guys some tips and tricks to play the deck yourselves. Let me know what you guys think about the UA deck, what changes you would make, what cards you're playing in UAs if you're playing UAs right now that I didn't mention. And that's really all for now. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is your boy 3CG Nistro here. Peace out.